everybody, and welcome back to EBNet Stream. There's been a lot of press recently around the second opportunity to take a withdrawal from your savings pot, given the new tax year that recently started. I thought I'd catch up with Michelle Acton, the Chief Customer Officer at Old Mutual Corporate, to discuss some of the experiences that they have had in the last week or two and to get any insights that she might have. Welcome to EBNet Stream, Michelle.
Thanks, Natalie.
So, of hoopla around the 1st of September initial opportunity to grab some money out of my savings pot. And we've seen some of the stats coming out of the big administrators, Old Mutual being one of them. What are your experiences since the 1st of March in our new tax year?
So I think firstly, just to put a bit of perspective, we had about 50% of members who could claim in the first 6 months come forward and claim. So starting the new tax year, the members that almost we expect to come forward and claim are those that have already claimed and have more than 2,000 Rand in their savings pot again. So essentially they're eligible to come forward. Of that group, literally in the last 10 days, we've seen about 30% of those members who meet that criteria have actually come through and claimed. It was quite heavily weighted to the first, which ended up being a Saturday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But it's actually started already to start dropping off already. So we've had that spike, but it hasn't been a massive spike. But I think a lot of it is because not everybody has enough to come forward and claim. So, I mean, just to put it in perspective, we did some work to have a look at those who've already claimed, how many could come and claim again. And I would say probably only 50% of those who've already claimed could come back and claim again. So it's not a massive number. And I think it also illustrates how low levels of contribution rates and low amounts being allocated to the retirement savings. So as those members start building up their contributions back up to the 2,000 mark, we'll probably start seeing more claims coming through as well.
What insights can you read into this kind of claiming behavior? And my real question is, what do you think people are using the money for? Do you think, the education efforts have been, let's call them, sufficient? What insights have you and your team been able to get from these stats?
So I think what's been interesting is, I mean, before we went live on the 1st of September, nobody was quite sure how many people would actually be coming forward to claim. And we all saw a significant increase in the September, October months of people coming forward to try and claim their money. What was interesting is, as mentioned earlier, about 50% of people who could claim have claimed in the occupational space. But we didn't see a spike again in December. We didn't see a spike in January, which I think some people anticipated with December and starting of the school year. So it seems as if, first of all of those who were going to come and claim didn't sort of wait for the right time. They just came and claimed September, October. But the second thing is, I think overall, then it means probably a little bit less have come forward to claim than we were expecting. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because it really means that the system's working, right? So the idea of having an emergency savings fund that you can come forward and claim from, if you need to, is actually, it seems to be what the majority of members are actually going to be using it for. So again, as I said, we're seeing a small spike in March, but again, it's now almost BAU. So with digital mechanisms of claiming, you don't really sort of notice it coming through. But overall, I think we are seeing that members are sort of not touching their money if they don't have to, which is quite pleasing.
That is fantastic news. And we certainly are seeing some of the research coming out pointing to that exact thing, that members are using this. I want to use the word judiciously, but I use that very cautiously, and are using it because there is real financial need. And so although that is distressing, it is good to see that the communication and the education is working around that. I want to touch on something that not a lot of people are talking about. And that is the second kind of side, or the other side of this two-pot coin, being the idea that you can no longer take all your cash. There is this compulsory preservation part. What are your insights into people who are just normal exits from your fund, and they're starting to realize, wait, hold on, I have to leave some money behind. Have you had any experience there that you could share with us?
Yeah, so I think just a couple of elements. The first one, which is again, like you say, didn't really get as much media attention or focus, is the fact that the exit process needed to change. Because historically, you had one amount of money. What do you want to do? Take cash or preserve or transfer? And we know the vast majority of members were ticking the "I'll take full cash, thank you very much" one option coming through. Now, with the new process, they must decide what do they want to do with their savings pot, if they have a choice, if they haven't accessed it already. What do they want to do with their vested pot? And based on that, what their options are available on their retirement pot. So the first thing is, of course, it becomes almost three claims, different tax directives, because, you know, you have to do a tax directive for your savings pot, etc., which does mean the withdrawal process takes slightly longer. And I'm not sure a lot of members are fully aware of that or expect that. So that is the one aspect that comes through. But the second thing is the complexity around the decision making now. So we have a lot of members coming to us and going, but where's the full cash option? Like which box do I tick? I want all my money. And then you have to explain, but you can't have all your money. You need to leave something behind. So we are having a lot of that. But it's just generally, if you mix all the options, I mean, members have up to 12 different options that they could possibly do, and it's complex. So, you know, we're finding questions from members like, what does preserve mean? You know, and we've got to explain using very simple English. You just leave your money in the fund, you can come back and fetch it. And I mean, the starting process does mean members are having to preserve rather small amounts. But I think that's just a side effect of a new system. You're always going to have that new system coming through. But I think it's demonstrating there is a clear gap in support that members need on exit. And what we are picking up is a lot of employers, HRs are sort of going, I can't tell a member, I can't explain this. It's too complicated for me. How am I supposed to support the member? So there is a bigger need for advice and support and guidance on that piece that I think when we shifted from the old to the new, it's going to probably take a while to settle. But I think there's a lot more support required with members on exit now. And especially when they move into a world where they'll start having 3 or 4 of these pots lying around as they change jobs and move around consolidation and how they pull it all together. So yeah, I think we are finding it's settling now, but the first couple of months, absolutely, there was a lot of uncertainty from members, employers, advisors around how do these options work? How does the process work? And it's complex for a member to try and understand all of these boxes that need to be ticked.
I get it. Whose role do you think it is to actually fill that gap? You know, you've got a human capital professional who's been told and really strongly encouraged by the industry to not give advice. You have a financial advisor who probably in reality doesn't know these members. And then you have the retirement fund and the poor retirement fund administrator. Whose job do you think it is to kind of cover that gap or kind of deal with this kind of education need?
I think, first of all, there's been a big shift, right? This change is transformational when it comes to the move into this new two-pot world. And so it's going to mean a slight tweak change of all stakeholders. There's sort of not one that needs to catch this big change. For some employers, they actually offer it as part of their employer value proposition or the EVP to help their members on exits and hold their hand and kind of guide them through almost on a counseling process. I think financial advisors, there's a huge space for financial advisors there in terms of helping, because the members often, they just want to know, what should I be doing? And then also from a trustee or fund perspective is around how do you counsel better, provide access. But with all of this, again, it's within sort of the cost constraints that you have around how do you optimally do this without providing or sort of having huge amounts of costs going up for everybody. So I think it is, and it's almost something we're having to find in the middle. So, I mean, counseling works. It has a purpose, absolutely. And as you know, it is something that retirement funds have to make available to members. But it's often not in the form the member wants. So it's how do you best sort of bridge that gap. So I think technology is absolutely going to help as you get more advanced in terms of capabilities and what you can do. But I do think it's going to need to be a slight tweak on the side of the employer, a tweak on the side of the financial advisors in terms of helping that space. And I think the biggest area is this group of members where there's actually big numbers, but they don't have huge amounts of money. So there's this big gap there that I think one needs to look at and say, how do we best help those members? Because I think that's another piece that the two-pot system is almost highlighting or emphasizing even louder, is people who are contributing low amounts because they earn low salaries, for example, and they've got to, it's been fine because when I resign, I'll just get all my money out in cash and it'll be cool. But in the new world, they're only going to be able to access a third. So if they're only pulling a small amount in and then they're splitting it and then there's costs, you've got to look at what the optimal structure is or level of contributions, etc., for those members to ensure that we don't have a situation where you just sort of this money disappears into thin air, if you know what I mean, in terms of just because they're not getting true value. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for taking the time to share your experiences with us. Such a great conversation, which I'm sure we'll carry on in the next in our next session where we do chat. And yeah, thank you for spending time with EBNet Stream.
Thank you.